Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving into what is, honestly, one of the most remarkable corporate turnarounds in modern tech history. We're tracing the wild narrative arc of AMD. Just over a decade ago, a lot of folks in the industry considered AMD a sinking ship, a literal sinking ship. Yet today, looking at the landscape of early 2026, they've completely transformed themselves into this absolutely indispensable pillar of global AI infrastructure. It's wild. So let's explore exactly how they engineered this massive dominance. Here is our roadmap for today's deep dive. We'll start with the architect, Lisa Su, then move into the chiplet revolution, unpack their Q1 2026 financial dominance, discuss the massive Meta partnership, break down Nvidia versus AMD, and finally, look ahead to the AI agent economy. All right, let's jump right into Chapter 1, the architect, Lisa Su. So, AMD's success? It's absolutely not a coincidence. It is the direct result of just ruthlessly disciplined execution by their CEO, Lisa Su. And her leadership really comes down to three foundational pillars. First up is cognitive synergy. Growing up, she actually combined high-level mathematics with classical piano, and this combo developed her capacity for parallel logical thinking, skills she literally used to manage AMD's massive, multifaceted architectural shifts. Second, she has unparalleled technical depth. She's an engineer with a PhD from MIT, so she doesn't just manage by looking at spreadsheets, right? She actually understands the physical limits of silicon. And third, bold restructuring. When she took the reins back in 2014, the company was bleeding money, but she had the courage to radically dismantle losing product lines and redirect all those resources straight into data centers and AI, a real game changer. Which brings us to Chapter 2, the chiplet revolution. This right here is the technological foundation Lisa Su built to enable AMD's incredible scaling. Let's make sure we have this core concept completely clear. Chiplet architecture is a design approach where instead of trying to build one giant, flawless processor, you break it down into smaller, distinct functional blocks called chiplets, and then you connect them together using advanced packaging. Think of it like building a massive fortress out of modular Lego bricks, rather than trying to perfectly carve the entire thing out of one giant, fragile block of stone. So why does this matter so much? Well, for decades, the industry relied on monolithic design, basically printing everything on one giant piece of silicon. But as chips got more and more complex, those designs hit some brutal scaling limits. A single microscopic flaw could ruin the entire chip. AMD's shift to chiplet architecture totally bypassed those physical limits. It allowed for highly efficient scaling and advanced packaging. This dramatically reduced waste, lowered costs, and actually increased power all at the same time. But, a brilliant design on a whiteboard is just a drawing, without the manufacturing to back it up. So the absolutely crucial move here was AMD's strategic pivot to partner with TSMC for their cutting-edge production nodes, rather than sticking with their historical spin-off Global Foundries. That specific decision took the chiplet revolution from a great theoretical concept and made it a physical, market-dominating reality. Moving on to Chapter 3, Q1 2026 Financial Dominance. And that physical reality? It translates directly into some seriously impressive hard data. By early 2026, AMD isn't just playing catch-up anymore, they are a core strategic pillar. Total revenue for Q1 hit a staggering $10.3 billion. That's a 38% year-over-year growth. But the real kicker? The data center segment alone brought in $5.8 billion, which is a massive 57% jump. Data center compute is now the undeniable, undisputed engine of AMD's growth. Now, this explosive growth didn't just appear out of thin air. It came directly out of Intel's pockets. Historically, we all know Intel effectively owned the server market. But by early 2026, AMD's EPYC server processors aggressively captured roughly 35 to 40% of that very market. They systematically dismantled a decades-old monopoly piece by piece. And if you want undeniable proof of AMD's efficiency, just look at this number. 83%. That is AMD's year-over-year operating profit growth during this period. It proves that chiplet architecture isn't just making powerful chips, it's allowing AMD to scale their margins incredibly efficiently. They are turning revenue into real bottom-line cash. Next up, Chapter 4, the Meta partnership. This partnership was really the watershed event in February 2026 that proved AMD's AI capabilities to the heavy-hitting enterprise world. 6 gigawatts. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the sheer scale of Meta's commitment to AMD. They agreed to deploy 6 gigawatts of AI compute power. To put that into perspective, a single gigawatt can power hundreds of thousands of homes. So Meta is literally dedicating the energy equivalent of several medium-sized cities entirely to running AMD hardware. No way, right? This massive deployment is built on AMD's Instinct MI450 chips. But honestly, arguably the most crucial element here is the software. For years, the big knock against AMD was that their ROCm software just couldn't compete with Nvidia's ecosystem. But Meta deploying it at this insane scale acts as the ultimate seal of quality. It proved to the entire tech industry that AMD's ROCm software is finally a validated, battle-tested alternative to Nvidia's CUDA.
Which naturally leads us to Chapter 5, Nvidia versus AMD.
Look, you just can't talk about one without the other, so let's map out the dichotomy between these two giants. I absolutely love this analogy from the source material. Think of Nvidia as the luxury sports car of AI. They completely dominate frontier training, that incredibly complex, expensive process of teaching a new AI model from scratch, perfectly protected by their deep CUDA software moat. AMD, on the other hand, isn't trying to build sports cars. They are the industrial truck. They're focused on mass inference, which is the act of actually using the AI model out in the real world once it's trained. That requires cost efficiency, incredible durability, and massive scale. Now, let's be real for a second and look at the financials. We have to acknowledge NVIDIA's historic dominance here. By 2026, NVIDIA's market cap exceeds $4.5 trillion. And since 2012, their cumulative returns have been roughly 11.6 times higher than AMD's. NVIDIA won the training era, hands down. But you see, this dichotomy isn't the end of the story. It's the setup. AMD's high growth and strategic positioning frame it as the inevitable second pillar of AI hardware.
And that sets up our final chapter perfectly. Chapter 6, the AI agent economy.
Looking forward from 2026 to 2034, we can see exactly why AMD's industrial truck strategy is just so perfectly timed. To understand this, we've got to address all the chatter out there about an AI bubble. Everyone's asking about it. Well, when asked directly if we are in one, Lisa Su's response was a confident, quote, emphatically no, end quote. She isn't looking at short-term hype, guys. She's looking at the hard infrastructure requirements for the next decade of human-computer interaction. Because here's what she sees coming down the pipeline. Over 5 billion active AI users expected in the next few years. We are moving from a world where a few top-tier scientists train large models to a world where billions of autonomous AI agents run millions of tasks every single second for everyday users. That means the demand for inference compute, the daily running of AI, is going to drastically outpace training compute.
If we trace this trajectory chronologically, 2012 really kicked off the frontier training era, which was NVIDIA's golden age. But 2026 marks the mass inference explosion. The tailwinds of the market are shifting directly into AMD's specific strengths of cost-efficient, scalable power. And this is going to lead us straight toward 2034, which experts are already identifying as the mature agent economy, a time where AI is just a standard background utility.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that the future isn't a winner-take-all scenario. Not at all. It's a hybrid future. NVIDIA is going to continue to be used for the heaviest scientific simulations and training massive new models. But AMD, working alongside decentralized physical infrastructure networks like IO.net and Render, will provide the cost-efficient distributed inference layer. AMD doesn't need to replace NVIDIA. It just needs to make NVIDIA unnecessary for the everyday mass deployment of AI. Which leaves us with this final thought. We're entering what tech visionaries like Elon Musk called the 10x economy, where productivity just skyrockets because AI becomes an invisible, underlying utility, kind of like electricity or running water. So if AMD is the industrial truck delivering that utility, how will this mass, cost-efficient inference compute reshape your daily digital life? Something to think about, right? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll see you next time as we continue to unpack the future.